Welcome to the Story Lab. Today we have another Lord of the Rings idea for you. The lab has already come up with multiple ideas for future movie and TV series productions in the world of J.R.R. Tolkien. But there are still some ideas left, and thus, let's have a look at a few ideas for Lord of the Rings miniseries. If studios desperately want to continue the franchise that is Lord of the Rings, instead of creating a high production value live-action series, we could come up with some small-scale series or even better some animated miniseries. These stories could play out little episodes from the book that had to be cut for the movies. Or they could show some unrelated stories from Middle-earth that have no impact on the plot. It is an easy way of bringing the characters from the Peter Jackson movies back to life without having to get all the actors back or recast. Also, the original animated versions of The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings have proven that this story looks good in animated form. Animated form also conveys the light-hearted fairy-tale-like feel of some of the Middle-earth stories better. Let us dig deep and see what unused stories that Tolkien wrote are still around. The Adventures of Tom Bombadil. The encounter between Tom Bombadil and Frodo and company. The interactions with the other Hobbit families. The Song of Nimrodel. The love story of Sam and Rosie Cotton. The story of the dwarfs' attempt to recolonize the mines of Moria. Gondor's struggles against the Corsairs of Umber. Gondor's evil cat Lady Queen. Stories from the Rohirrim. The treaty between Eorl and Cirion. And there is more. The Battle of the Gladden Fields and Isildur's death. The hunt for the rings before the arrival in the Shire. The War of the Rohirrim against the troops of Isengard and Theodred's death. The love story of Faramir and Eowyn. Anything about Sam's and the other Hobbits' children. Lots of little things from the Silmarillion. And more. And more. And more. We certainly won't get around to adapt all of these stories, but let's come up with at least 3 miniseries. We will simply give the data to our supercomputer and see what it comes up with. Here we go. Our first animated miniseries is called The Adventures of Tom Bombadil. The series consists of about 10 short animated episodes come in pairs, playing out a number of small adventures of Tom Bombadil over the years. The series is bookended by the adventures surrounding the visit of Frodo and company during the event of The Lord of the Rings. The other stories are portrayed as things that Tom Bombadil tells the hobbits on a rainy night in his cottage. The series is child-friendly and doesn't require much lore knowledge, but is a part of The Lord of the Rings itself. These are the individual stories. 1. Frodo, Sam, Merry, and Pippin get captured by the Old Widow. Tom shows up to free them and brings them home to his cottage. Frodo asks who Tom is, and gets the cryptic response. 2. The hobbits encounter Goldberry and are enchanted by her, then they talk about the ring. Tom is not influenced by it, which greatly confuses Frodo. 3. Tom starts telling stories. The first thing the hobbits ask is how Tom met Goldberry. 4. The hobbits also ask about the old willow tree, and Tom Bombadil hints at him being a Huorn. 5. Tom Bombadil tells a story of visiting Farmer Maggot and how Maggot helped him finding a lost animal. 6. Frodo recounts his own childhood adventures with Maggot, and how the farmer had had his dogs chase after him. 7. Bombadil tells of a time he found an elf wandering in the forest and helped him find the way into the Shire. 8. Bombadil still accompanies the elf, stopping him from going off track again until they eventually reach the Grey Havens. Frodo dreams of the Havens that night. 9. Tom teaches the hobbits a song to sing when in danger in his realm, then the hobbits leave. They get lost in the Barrow Downs and captured by wraiths. The episode ends with Frodo alone in the dark singing Bombadil's song. 10. Bombadil arrives and saves the hobbits. He then accompanies them all the way to Bree, where he takes his leave, disappearing over the hills. Then, we have the tale of Cirion and Eorl. This is a more grown-up series showing actual battles happening, and having a lot to do with politics and relationships. This miniseries would have longer episodes and a more mature animation style. There would be 5 episodes. 1. Gondor is facing a new enemy and is pushed out of their eastern lands. They try to get help from the people of the eastern lands, former Rovanian, but are turned down. A hero decides to take matter into his own hands and ride even further north. 2. Cirion the steward makes the decision to move behind the Anduin. There is a great fight happening at the Rauros Fall. Our hero reaches the north but still cannot get anyone to agree to help. But he does notice a silent man with golden hair. 3. Cirion is wounded and transported back to Minas Tirith. The enemy forces are allowed to enter the region that would one day become Rohan. In the north, our hero follows the silent man and discovers a large folk of noble riders, the Rohirrim. Cirion is healed and reassembles his forces to drive the enemies out. The great battle happens and Cirion nearly loses, but then Eorl and the Rohirrim show up and save him. 5. Gondor and Rohan become allies and their eternal friendship is commemorated at the grave of Elendil. Our hero receives a medal and a patch of land in the new kingdom of Rohan. And finally, the Shire Stories. This would be a series for the whole family, maybe even with multiple seasons. It would basically be a young Frodo series. In the first episode, the young mischievous Frodo would be invited by Bilbo Baggins to come live with him. The show would then be about Frodo's adventures with his friends, Sam, Fredegar Bolger, and others. At the same time, Bilbo and other grown-ups would have their own little side stories. Here are some story ideas, without any specific order. Frodo meets Sam and they play a trick on Old Hamfast. Frodo and Sam try get into the pub to stake out the Sackheim Butlins. Fredegar Bolger is dying of hunger after having been locked in Bilbo's storage room by accident. The young hobbits try to help Sam to ask Rosie Cotton out for the midsummer dance. Bilbo and Frodo are having one of their combined birthdays. Gandalf shows up and teaches Frodo a lesson when he tries to steal a fireworks rocket. Bilbo goes on a little quest and Frodo and his friends are having a party in Bag End. The miller's son has heard of treasure hidden in Bag End. He tries to dig it out, but Frodo chases him away. The Tyne of the Tooks visits and Frodo is tasked with looking after baby Pippin, which causes even more mischief than Frodo had in mind anyway. The Sackville Baggins invite Bilbo and Frodo to dinner, but are rude. Bilbo helps Frodo with a trick to get back on them. Young Merry arrives in Hobbiton and Frodo and he scare the miller's son by placing him on a boat. Etc. etc. So that's the 3 we came up with this time. The Adventures of Tom Bombadil. The Tale of Cirion and Eorl. Shire Stories. And we still do not even come close to having covered all the stories. Would you like us to come up with more ideas? Do you have any? Please note that everything presented here is simply the results of an experiment. No part of this presentation is intended as a correction of an existing story or claims to be the real story. The selection or omission of any parts of the source material is not to be understood as commentary, positive or negative, on the original productions. These are simply thoughts and experiments based on existing material and none of it could be created without the work of all those involved in creating the original works. As with any scientific result, you may utilize any of the story ideas that resulted from these experiments for your own experiments or production, while citing this experiment as its source. It is now closing time for our lab. Goodbye until next time.